So, my Slovenian friends, my name is Moritz Eggert. I'm a composer mainly, but I also started out as a pianist. I sometimes conduct, I sometimes work as an actor, as a writer. I studied in Frankfurt at the beginning at the Dr. Hoch's Conservatorium. Had very good oral training lessons from the age of 10. And then composition lessons with Klaus Kühn, who was my first real teacher. He was very, very good. I had piano lessons with Wolfgang Wagenhäuser, later at the Music University in Frankfurt with Leonard Håkansson, both great teachers. Then I moved to Munich to study with Wilhelm Killmeier, who was my main composition teacher, I think. I studied with him until what was then called Diplom. This was before Bachelor and Master. Then I did Meisterklasse in Munich, but at the same time I did piano studies again in Frankfurt, and at the same time I also studied at the Guildhall School in London. So I was studying in 3 academies at the same time, which was totally forbidden. But if you want to do that, please do it and don't tell anybody. So after London was finished, I was really finished with my studies, and since then I'm working as a freelance pianist and composer. And now I'm also a teacher and professor. So the second question, you are a composer, but also president of the German Composers Union, blogger, true, singer sometimes, performer, actor sometimes, conductor sometimes. Do you consider being interdisciplinary as an advantage for artists? How do you organize your life to be able to do all that? Okay, first of all, I think the more flexible you are in what you do, the better chances you will have later on in your career, regardless if you're a composer, if you're a singer, if you're an instrumentalist. If you are very solitary in what you're doing, if you just concentrate on one aspect of music, this might work for you if you are super, super talented. But of course, we have to be realistic. We will not all be stars from the start, and we also will have to make a living. So I would advise, for example, composers who play an instrument to not stop playing that instrument when you study, because you can still get by giving piano lessons, cello lessons, or whatever. And there's absolutely no shame about that. Other jobs that composers could do would be, for example, working with notation, like for publishers, or doing piano reductions for colleagues, doing parts for orchestra pieces. All these are also paid jobs. Of course, as an instrumentalist or singer, you can also give lessons, but if you have like other skills, let's say as a singer, perhaps you have Alexander technique and you have that developed to a certain extent, then you can also give lessons with that. As a singer, if you are not from Slovenia, if you're perhaps from Italy or from another country, then perhaps you could also give Italian coaching for opera singers when they sing a Verdi opera. This is a job that some colleagues that I know do. So be as versatile as possible, and also look at the past. If you look at the composers from the 19th, 18th century, they were not only doing one thing. I mean, Robert Schumann was a blogger. There were no blogs at his time, but he was responsible for one of the most important music magazines of his time, and he had a huge correspondence and wrote articles practically every week, in addition to the diary where he wrote about his sex life and all other things. But so he really was very, very busy. Chopin was a great teacher. He was a very, very passionate teacher. Liszt was a teacher. He also coached younger composers. So they were all very, very busy with a lot of things. They were not like doing one thing only. And I can only recommend that. When I started out as a composer, became clear to me that just having this narrow outlook on music just through composition would not be enough. So, for example, to write operas, I thought I should also have the experience as a singer. I'm not a great singer, and I'm certainly not an opera singer, but I was really looking for participating in like experimental operas that friends of mine wrote, like with death metal voice or something. And I really wanted to have the experience. How is it to be on a stage to sing, and how difficult is it to see the conductor, for example? And this doesn't mean that my main career is a singer, but I have this experience as a composer, and it certainly helps me. Also, what helped me is just performing as a pianist for decades, and also performing music of colleagues, of other composers, because you really only learn if your music is boring, or if any music is boring, if you play it in a concert. It's a different thing if you sit in a concert and just listen to music, but if you play on stage, if you perform on stage, you realize very quickly what works and what not. Sometimes it's your own fault as the person interpreting the music, but sometimes it's also the fault of the composition. And these are things that you can learn. So versatility in general is something that I recommend very, very much. How do I organize my life? To be honest, when I was studying, and especially the times when I was studying for an exam in solo piano and an exam in composition, it was very, very stressful. It's because both teachers demanded from me that I was like functioning on this very, very high competitive level. To my great astonishment, once university was over, suddenly from one day to the next, it was much, much easier, because then I could be the master of my own time scheduling. And so I knew, okay, I practice piano, but I also compose. And I could do that how it fits. You know, if I had important concerts coming up, I would practice more. If I had a composition deadline coming up, I would compose more. And since I didn't have to visit any courses anymore, or write any exams, or do any tests, or prepare master concerts or bachelor concerts, I had much, much more time. And I was actually astonished how easy it then was. The thing is that many people get turned off being versatile by the studies, and that is not what should happen. I mean, you can always find a balance in your studies, what is really important for you, what not, and sometimes it's better to also already prepare how it will be after you are finished studying, because studying is important, and I'm the last person to say that the university will not give you great opportunities, and especially also great contacts for the future, because all the people you are studying with will be your colleagues later on. You will meet them all your life. I'm still meeting people I've studied with today. And sometimes they're famous conductors now, or they're famous soloists. And of course, it helps that I studied with them and that I know them from studies. So the university is important. But you should also prepare already for the life after university, during university. I think that's really important. And how do I organize my life today, especially with family? Some of you will perhaps start a family, and that's a totally different challenge, of course. It is difficult, it remains difficult, being freelance mainly. This is still what I consider myself to be, freelance, even though I'm teaching. But my main income, my main activity is freelance activity, and that is always stressful. Of course, you will never know how many jobs you will have, how easy it will be. Some months will be incredibly busy, some months will be incredibly lazy in a way. And you need these months also to recover, perhaps, for the more stressful months. But to be honest, I mean, that's the life we chose, you know. If you are scared of that, then don't become a musician. It's really as simple as that. If you want a safe life, and if you want to have a safe pension and no trouble, and then do something else. Really, honestly, I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted ones, but it is also so much more interesting and exciting than normal jobs. I would never want to be a civil servant, for example, or working in a 7 to 5 job or something. I just couldn't. It's not my personality, but every person has to choose for him or herself. It is always a matter of organization. You need a certain amount of self-discipline. I always make, or used to make more, because now I have more experience and I don't need those plans anymore, but I make very, very detailed plans about what I want to achieve and when I wanted to achieve in a certain work. So, for example, if I have a composition deadline coming up, I really think about in advance how far I have to proceed in the composition, at what day until the deadline. And I usually give myself like 3 weeks or 4 weeks safety time, because it could always be that I'm ill or something, or I have an important travel suddenly coming up or so. So you always have to have a contingency plan that everything does not go as planned. And if you have that contingency plan and have a schedule and you work every day as much as you can, but not too much also, because then you become tired, that really, really helps. And it's the same for practicing. Sometimes when I practice a new piece, I make a plan. Okay, I see the performance is in 3 months. And so I start very slowly. I say, okay, I look at one page really, really closely, at one page until I have looked at all pages. Then I look at 2 pages per day. Then I look at 4 pages per day. And I get more and more comfortable with the piece. I repeat a lot. I work on details. I really take my time and don't rush it. And then you suddenly have the experience that the more disciplined you get, the more structured you are in your work approach, the more relaxed everything will become. It will not be last minute. You will not stay up until 11 in the night to practice something difficult that you have to do because the concert is the next morning or something. That is not good, because freelance life is stressful anyway. You don't have to put that additional stress on yourself in your work by being, I mean, I won't say lazy or something, because we all tend to be lazy. I mean, everybody wants to be lazy. Everybody wants to, you know, relax and hang out with friends. And there's nothing bad about that. But make a plan where you know what you have to work, but also you know when to relax and when to have free time. Plan that in. Plan in your day schedule that you also just take a walk for an hour, or that you do sports, or that you do something that is good for you and it's not necessarily something that is important for your job or something. You need this free time. And it might also be good to even say, okay, I work every day, but I don't work on Sunday. I do something really nice on Sunday with my friend. Do it, because you need this relaxation time as well. If you have a good balance, and that's what I try to do all my life, of free time, relaxing time, and really working hard, concentrating, that's actually very nice. And you have to be as disciplined in your free time as you are disciplined in your work time. And the problems that arise when I talk to my students, when they complain about, you know, having crises with their pieces, so it's mostly because they mix up the free time or their hobbies or whatever and their work, and the borders are not really clear. And so they never really relax, but they also never really work. And the lines are muddled, and that creates the most problems. If you work and do it with as much concentration as possible, without TikTok, without social media or so on. Really try to say, okay, I'm practicing for 1 hour and my mobile phone is out, my computer is out, and I really do that. Then you take a break, have a coffee or a tea, chat with somebody, and then you say, okay, I do it again for 1 hour. For every person, these times will be different, but really try to, when you do something, do it with your full concentration. And I know that this becomes more and more difficult in our times, and especially young people have lots of problems with that because they're so distracted. But also old people like me are distracted easily. I think we are all in the same danger of becoming overwhelmed with messaging and you know, all these media that we use. And we really need also to take time off them. That's I think a really important philosophy. So if you ask me, how do I organize my life? I do organize my life. I make plans what I have to achieve every day, and I make perhaps even little games. Like I say, I answer one email, then I will do like a sports exercise, then I answer another email, then I will clean up my office space a little. So I mix it up and make little games about it. And I also know how much time I have to spend on composing and on my main job. And it's always not enough usually. And so I really relish the time that I have for my creative work, because that is the best work. That's the work that is the most fun. Okay, next question. Sometimes it seems that composers get most of their commissions or projects during the studies. However, study can last forever. True. One way to get new commissions is through competitions, but there is relatively small chance to be selected. Also true. Is there any other way to become a successful composer? What career tips would you suggest to students of University of Ljubljana Academy of Music? So I'm not talking to composers only here. So my first really important tip is, once you reach your master studies, I think that's the latest point, So you have successfully finished your bachelor. And don't think it just continues like that and you do your master. There's a reason why usually the master programs for musicians have less lessons than the bachelor before. And the reason for that is because we, as the teachers, expect you to then already try and work on the transition to professional life at that point. So it's absolutely okay, in my opinion, if master students, for example, do composition courses outside the university, going to other composers, doing, visiting festivals, traveling somewhere. This is important that you start before you finish your studies, because otherwise what happens is that you have your master concert and then you sit there and think, well, what's happening now? And nothing will happen, nothing at all, because nobody knows that you studied music. Nobody knows you. So you have to start to get around. So some tips that I can give you, and these are also from our own experience. Social skills are as important as your music skills. I've seen a lot of very, very talented musicians really fail in their career because they were horrible people. I mean, to put it like that, they were treating others badly, they were obnoxious, and that will hinder a career. Only in very rare cases. We know that there are some not so nice people also in the music world that are very, very successful, but they are the exception. Most people that are successful in the music world actually have good social skills. If you want to be a successful conductor, for example, who leads an orchestra for a long time, you need to be able to be, relatively nice to people. And I don't mean nice because you pretend to be nice, but I mean really nice, like really respecting other people, respecting the work of your colleagues, respecting the work of the orchestra musicians, helping them also if they need help. These are social skills, and they are important. I cannot stress how important that is. I always tell my students, it's okay if you have a competition a little. I mean, everybody wants to get the attention of the teachers. They want to have good grades. They want to have, recommendations or whatever. So there's a little competition is going on, and that's not bad. But it has to be a friendly competition. Don't be disparaged because your fellow student is more successful in something than you. Be happy for this person. Applaud this person. Also give this person their respect because they probably worked hard for that success. Because if you do that, then they will also give you what you deserve. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, we all know from evolution and from history that all these things that we have, like ethical values, a morale, that we care for poor people, that we care for sick people, for people who are disabled or whatever. These are all important foundations of society, and what is true in society is also true in the music career. So that is the start. That try to work on your social skills. Try to think about others and not only about yourself. Because if you think only about your own career and that you are the greatest person on this planet, it will show, and people will think you're arrogant, and it will actually affect your career negatively. Yeah? We are all human, and we all know envy. We know, of course, somebody wins this competition and we feel, I should have won this competition. This is only natural. Yeah, we have to be honest about this, but fight against this. Always think, what can you do to make this better? If somebody has success and you haven't had that success, think about not think about badly about the person who has that success, but think about, what can I do to have that success? It's always in your hand. And that brings me to my next important point. The main asset that you have as a musician, as a composer, is your quality. And this is more important than networking. It's more important than, sending lots of letters to festivals and conductors or whatever. The quality of your work has to be number one. The quality of your musician skills, of your singing skills. This is number one that you have to work on. This will not immediately result in success. I mean, we know all as I said at the beginning, we know people who are very talented who are for some reason not successful. Sometimes it's luck, bad luck, But even if it is bad luck, think always about what can I do to be better? Because we always have to learn. Nobody is perfect, and it's an ongoing process. And this is actually what is nice about our job, that it's never ending. We all know, if you study age, medicine, that once you stop learning in your life, once you stop being interested in new input, then your brain will deteriorate very quickly. So we are very lucky that we have a job where we actually have to learn until we are 80, 90, even 100. I mean, there are so many great conductors and pianists who lived to a really old age. The reason for that is because they were still playing concerts, they were still learning new repertoire, and they're still using their brain. It might not be as fast as when you're young, but they're still pretty good, you know. And that keeps you alive. And so never stop learning. Never think you are too good or something. You can do everything, because you can't. I mean, I certainly never have that feeling that I know everything, that I can do everything. Never. And I like that, because it always challenges me to become better. And that is the thing that you have to work on. Now to concrete career tips. What I mentioned at the beginning, nobody knows that you study in Ljubljana University. You might have been the most successful student, everybody loves you there, your teachers love you, your fellow students applaud you, but the rest of the world doesn't know about you at all. So what can you do? Of course, there are competitions, of course, there are contests, but they're a bit like a lottery, especially when you're starting out. As a composer, for example, don't expect that the first pieces you send to competitions will immediately result in a win or something. You might get lucky. I mean, some do, but it's super, super rare. And even to musicians and singers, I would say competitions are great if you win them, but even if you win them, they don't make a lasting career. I've seen so many people win super important competitions, and everybody says, yeah, you're the greatest, you have won the RID competition in Munich, you must be the best oboist in the world. And nothing happened, nothing. You can win even Tchaikovsky competition or whatever, and your career might be shit. It's not all. A competition can help you if your social skills are good, but it is not the only thing. The main thing that you have to do is, and that depends a bit on what career you want to have. If you want to become an orchestra musician, of course, probably preparing for, for playing for orchestras for a job. That's probably an important part of your career. So you have to do a lot of auditions and learn how these auditions work, and don't be despairing when it doesn't work at the start. But this is probably a skill that you have to develop. If you're a composer, I think one of the main things is to just get out of your room. Because composers tend to be a bit autistic and they work for themselves, you know, they don't leave the room. And I know many composers who think, or who even are really good composers, but nobody will know because nobody knows them. They never go to premieres of colleagues. They never go to an opera festival. And I don't mean going to a competition where you hope to get selected, but going to the premiere of your friend at the opera house in Ljubljana, for example. Yeah. And if you do go there, then make sure that you go to the party afterwards. You might laugh about this advice, but really go to the party and talk to the people who performed perhaps in a piece that you really liked or that you enjoyed, and make yourself known by, you know, saying how much you loved what they did. And not in a false or you know, pretended way, but I mean, be honest. If you didn't like it, also tell them. It doesn't matter. But talk to them and get to know these people. Get to know the people that do the work that you would like to do as well. Go to their concerts, go to their premieres, go to the festivals where their pieces are played. Don't expect that you are played there immediately, but if you hang out, people will notice you. And then at some point somebody might ask you, oh, so you're a composer as well, so what are you doing? And if somebody asks you that, then the next day you send those people your work. Even then, most of the time, nothing will come out of it. But sometimes something will happen. Because if a person, then it is absolutely okay if you then send your To give you my own perspective how my career started. When I was studying, we were a bit bored. This was a group of composers. At that time, the bachelor-master system didn't really exist, so we had actually very few lessons, much too few. So I was hanging around the university all the time, having not much to do. So we were so bored that we started our own festival. There was a good situation in Munich at that time. It was a bit lucky that we got some money. But we got together and organized our own concerts. So my composition colleagues, who studied at Kilmeyer, we founded the Avant-Garde Festival, which still exists, about which I'm very proud. But we took things in our own hands. We didn't sit around waiting for some miracle to happen for us, but we organized our own concerts. And we organized these concerts also for each other. Yeah? So not only for ourselves, but also for our friends and colleagues. This was something that was really important. That at the same time, the Biennale was founded. This was an important music theater festival founded by Hans-Werner Henze in Munich. And we made sure, or I made sure, to go to every premiere of this festival and to get to know all the foreign composers who came from England, from Australia, wherever, from the US, who had premieres there. And I talked to them. I got to know them. And at some point, of course, Henze, who was the intendant of the festival, at some points he noticed me because I was hanging around all the time. So I was like a really eager audience. And from that conversation, of course, at some point came my first commission for the Biennale, which was a puppet opera. So he was like giving commissions to young composers who were hanging around in Munich because he just tested them. So these were minor commissions, small mini opera commissions. And there you could like prove yourself in a way. And these were my first opportunities that I had. And this all happened while I was still studying. Yeah. So when studying was over, I already had some performances outside the Hochschule. And of course, there was a kind of change after that because it's not a university situation anymore. You're not a student. Suddenly life also costs more. You have to pay more for tickets, for all kinds of things. I'm sure that in Slovenia, it's also like a student has a bit of a cheaper life, and that is then not the case anymore when you finish studying. But to earn money, I just played a lot of concerts as a pianist. And that is where it was good that I still worked as a pianist because I just played lots of premieres of colleagues. And the money I earned from that gave me the space to work on my compositions. And I made a mixture of compositions that were commissions from outside, of course, but it was started really slow with very not super paid commissions, of course. But because I earned some money as a pianist, I could also develop some projects that I just like to do. For example, the whole cycle Hammerklavier that I did, which was really important for my career, was just something that I wanted to do. So I had concerts as a pianist, and I just said, okay, I put one piece of myself in the program, and this will be Hammerklavier number 1. And in the next concert, it was Hammerklavier number 2, number 3. And I wrote all these pieces for free. There was no commission. But because they were exactly what I wanted to do, they helped me also get known as a composer. So think about these things. If you're a composer, found an ensemble together with other composers. Conduct the works not only of yourself but of other people. All these things will get you into the business. You just have to be active. I have also another nice example, not about myself, but for example, Johannes Schachtner, who is a very nice colleague of me in Munich, also a very known composer now in Germany. He started out helping in the Avant-Garde Festival as an assistant. And we had an opera where in the general rehearsal, 3 singers were ill. So we couldn't have this rehearsal. And Johannes, who had already coached the singers as a pianist, he spontaneously sung all these roles in the general rehearsal because he was able to do so. He is a very musical person. And that impressed us so, because we saw this was this really super talented young student, that of course we integrated him more into Avant-Garde in the festival and gave him also jobs in the festival. And because he was professional and because he was very, very good and very eager also and helpful, of course this helped him also in his own career. Yeah? But in a good way, and not by pushing your music on people, but really by helping out, by being solidaric, by being supportive to other people. That is actually most important, that you do that. if you are a musician and you constantly pester other people, you know, how great you are or what you have written, and you send music to people that haven't asked for it. I know people who do this kind of tactic, and I would strongly advise against this tactic. It's not good. I'm now in a position where I get hundreds of emails sometimes every month of people doing exactly that. And it's kind of annoying. And it will not always be positive. I try to be friendly because I can also sympathize with people being desperate to get known and so on. Yeah, but sometimes they write me and they expect me to recommend them there, and then this and this will happen. It doesn't work like that. It's better if I get to know them in a professional situation. And if I see their work, if I see their personality, if I see their professionalism, that will make me interested in young talents, in young singers, pianists, whatever. This is the best way to get noted. And this brings me to what I said at the beginning. The better you are, I mean, the more work you put in your profession, the more chances you will have that this will get noted in a professional situation. And that is the best way to start a career. If you get, I mean, very quickly noted because you use social media to announce that you're the new Beethoven or whatever, and for some people this might work for a while, but then it doesn't work anymore because they're not good. Yeah, because they spend all their time trying to be famous, but they spend very little time on their composition, and that will at some point have a really negative effect on your career. I've seen careers that went like this and then this, and this is not what you want to have happen to you. You want your career to be like this, starting slowly, building up, but constantly becoming better. And this is a step-by-step process. It might go like this. Of course, there will be ups and downs. Nothing is for sure. There will be lulls. There will be periods of time when you think there should be more happening, but don't despair. Be patient. Patience will pay off. Okay, next question. What advice would you give to young composers who are interested in opera or theater? How should they approach that working field? So, for opera or theater, my first advice would be go to the opera. Go into operas. And I don't mean only contemporary operas, but go into the opera house. Go into the opera house every week. Watch operas. Go to general rehearsals of operas. Be at every rehearsal that you can get in as a student. Know your craft. I know so many people who want to write opera and they don't have a clue about opera. They have never entered a theater. They have a very, very amateurish idea of what opera is. They don't know current opera directors. They don't know their work. They don't know what is happening in the international opera scene. Bad. Yeah? If you want to do a profession, then be interested in that profession. You can so much learn from others. You can learn from contemporary operas that already exist. I sometimes ask students, what are your favorite operas of the 20th century? And they don't even know one. They cannot even name one single opera of the 20th century. And that is not good if you want to be an opera composer. You have to be interested in art. Really think, I mean, if you look at famous artists, not only music, look at the lives of Picasso or whatever. They were not only interested in their own work. Picasso knew very, very, very well what the painters of his generation were doing. And because he knew that, he could also develop his own, because otherwise you are doomed to repeat the same mistakes that others make. So this is my first very, very important advice. And if you are interested in writing operas, I think what you should seek is theater music work. Look for either in the university, there might be an actors, whatever, putting on a play, and I'm not saying opera, but a theater play that needs music. Perhaps it needs a song. Perhaps it needs a bit of incidental music. Even film music will teach you things about opera. If you have friends who do a short film and they wanted to have some music, this will also teach you some things that are important in opera. But the best thing would be to sit as a composer in a theater piece, or as a music director if you're a conductor, or if you're a singer. You might even study the main role or something of you might not sing it, but you just study it and you also train for it. So this will also be a helpful experience. As a composer, again, write a theater play music. And visit the rehearsals of the director. See how directors work with actors and actresses. Learn about the timing and about how time passes on a stage. If you train that with simple music, just write, like, as I said, it doesn't need to be a full opera evening, but if you write 10 minutes or 15 minutes of theater music, it will teach you a lot. Another thing that you can try is to orchestrate. Sometimes it's needed, for example, that you have a piece like La Traviata, but it cannot be performed by the people that want to perform it because they have only like 6 players or something. Yeah, perhaps they have a piano quintet and a horn or something. Yeah, and then you reorchestrate La Traviata for another ensemble. This will also teach you a lot. It will teach you orchestration, and it will also teach you how a great composer worked in opera, how this music is done, how the timing works. And this is also something that you learn when you just reorchestrate it. And then you can try with your first chamber operas. It might be for a small ensemble, and then perhaps only 20 minutes long or something, yeah? And then you slowly graduate to the larger forms until you write an evening-long opera. To get these commissions, also in Germany, it's not easy for young composers. You will not get a huge opera commission for an evening-long opera just like this. What is usually a good way to go into the business is by doing youth work, like youth operas, children's operas, because these are activities of opera houses where they usually have a little less money than for the large productions. So they are actively looking for, I mean, I have to say it, cheaper young talent. So they know that they don't have to pay a young unknown composer as much as they would have to pay Penderecki if he was still alive or something. Yeah. So they will ask younger composers, and this is a good way to get noted. You know, if you do a good job with a children's opera, it might even get performed a lot, and that is a very, very good entry into the opera world. A part of that also, I mean, look out for opera festivals like the Biennale. They sometimes have open calls for ideas, like at the moment the Munich Biennale is doing a kind of competition for a martial arts opera or something. And there are many, many other opportunities like this worldwide, and you can try these. But really hone your skills in the opera situation. You have to live in the opera house to know what opera is. It's not something that you can learn reading in a book or something. You have to be in the opera house. You have to see rehearsals, be like a mouse in the opera house, be like the phantom of the opera. Live underground the opera, and every time there's a performance, you hide in the wings or you know, on the stage somewhere and watch it. This is how you learn opera. Yeah? Okay. Final question. Some contemporary composers struggle to get the audience. You seem to have quite a large one, I don't know. What kind of thinking attitude should young composers have if they want the music to succeed? How to make music that the audience would be interested in? Okay, there's of course no recipe for this. We all know that a lot of famous films, for example, that people love now failed when they were first premiered. Blade Runner, for example, was a huge flop and is now quite an important film in the film canon. And there are many, many other examples. So even very, very good work is not necessarily immediately an audience hit. And I'm not sure if it's a good tactic to always think about what the audience wants and then fulfill it, because that will make for really boring works. The audience does not want to be pampered in that way. In commercial art, very often they make calculations on what is the lowest common denominator, you know, what will most people like. But to be honest, this rarely makes good art. The good films, the good books, the good theater plays and operas, they're not necessarily crowd pleasers from the beginning. It can happen, and there are examples where it happened, but you have to think about that even a famous opera like Carmen was a flop at the at the premiere. It was not a success at all. And with a musically wonderful piece like Carmen, you really have to question what happened here, yeah? Because the music is definitely good, and it is also extremely accessible and you know, exciting, yeah? So what went wrong? Was the bad director? Was the production bad? We don't know. So the first thing, if you are a composer, the first thing you have to think about is really write what you love. I mean, if you are interested in it, then there's a chance that other people are interested in it. And I say this, it sounds simple, because most young composers would say, yeah, but I write what I love. No, most of the time you don't. You write what you think your teacher will love. You write what you think the competition will love, where you send your piece in. You write what you think will give you a good grade in an academic situation. You write what you think will give you a grant. Yeah? And this is not writing what you love. No, no, no. This is writing for an entity that you think will then applaud you. And this is not really what you want to write, believe me. What you want to write is completely free and is something that you are passionate about. And I'm not telling a joke when I say that I know many composers who certainly don't write what they love. They don't write music that they would listen to themselves. I mean, as stupid as that sounds. And I don't mean that it's because that music is atonal or whatever. These are stupid terms that I don't like anyway. I love dissonances and I love crazy music. This is really not a conservative statement here. But you have to like what you write. It really has to excite you. You have to put your heart in it. It's really, for me, one of the most important things as a composer. I only write what I really would like to hear as well, what is fun for me to hear. And that is my number one priority, because that's all I can do. If I write like I think other people will like it, then I'm lying. I'm not honest. My art will be a lie. So what good will it be if that art is successful? I could name you a few composers, especially of the neoclassical genre, whose music I think is extremely cynical, because I know that they don't really like that kind of music, but they do it because it will bring them a lot of money. They might earn a lot of money with it, but they are not happy people. And I think that living a lie is worse than being poorer. I rather write the music that I really like, and I'm not the richest person, but then living a lie and being super rich. This might be a very solitary stance, I know, but I could not live any other way. So if you write something that you love, you still have an audience, and that first audience is of course yourself. And if you are really critical, and if you really can think about how a person will perceive your music that has never heard a piece of yours, or has not read a program note, or has not has an introduction by you about the piece or something, then you will, if you are self-critical, which I hope you are, think about, okay, how can I make my music communicate something without having additional things that I have to look up. So if I make my music extremely academic and only appealing to people who have an academic background, then I will fail in a way, because then that music is not open to everybody. This music is only open to people who are from the craft, who are experts. And this is what I've always hated, because I think contemporary music has so many things to give, so many exciting ideas. But if you do it only for the experts, if you do it for an academic audience, then these ideas will never reach people. And if you look at the really, really great music of the past, it is always open to everybody. It doesn't need any additional explanation. Bach's music does not need that you know counterpoint or the history of Baroque music. It is still fascinating if you listen to it. The music of Beethoven is super inclusive. It's fascinating on so many levels. And of course, if you are a music expert, you can discover things in Beethoven that perhaps the normal person in the concert will not discover. But the normal person in the concert will still be able to sing the finale of the Ninth Symphony and will understand what Beethoven wanted to tell with this. And the music is fantastic, but it is also extremely inclusive to an audience, and not in a cheap way, in a very, very high quality way. But it is not music that is obscure. It's not music that's erudite or, you know, needlessly complicated, needlessly exclusive. So think about these things. When you write something, you can write as experimental and crazy as you want, but think about how fascinating it is if you come from a perspective that has no professional knowledge. And I think as artists, I think we should strive to make art that is accessible to theoretically everyone if they have an open mind. Many people don't have an open mind, but we cannot change that. If somebody is against any kind of new music or whatever, we will never reach them, regardless of what we do. But if we assume that somebody has an open mind but knows nothing about contemporary music, has never read Adorno, has never studied composition, that we write in a way that this person will have a fascinating experience, then we win. If we can reach that this person has some way to connect with the piece that we are writing, then we win. So these are things that we have to think about. And it's not meaning that we have to be simple or cheap, or, you know, we don't have to serve the audience, not at all, but we have to make it accessible in a way. It's like if you are an architect, you know, and we want our building to be used, then we have to build a stairway to get up to the first level. Yeah, if we want people to live and work in the first level, there needs to be a stairway. And no architect will say, oh, I'm not building the stairway because the stairway is ugly or whatever. You know, they know that they have to do this. And we can do similar things in music. We can build these stairs, and there's no shame about this, and it can still be the most fantastic building or the most fantastic composition that we do. But we have to build these doors, these little things, and help people to get into the building that we create, the music that we create. And that is actually very difficult. It's a big challenge, it's a task, and it takes a lot of skill. And many composers don't think about this. They only think about, their grades. They think about the scholarship that they will get because the score looks complicated. And this is not art. Okay, so I hope you could take some advice from me, and I wish you all the best in your future careers. Be gentle to each other, be gentle to yourself also. I think this is also an important career tip. Don't exploit yourself. I know many musicians, singers especially, are always endangered, who exploit themselves, and at some point your body will tell you, no, I don't like this. So be gentle also. Take also rests. Don't think that you have to work like crazy. Rather work in a structured way, that you work regularly, but not until you're exhausted. Because like in sports, I do a lot of sports. This is why I always compare music life with sports. You would never do like the hardest training every day. No athlete in the world does that. The professional athletes never do that. They have their rest days, they have their rest phases. They know, okay, I'm doing intervals when I'm a runner, but I also do a lot of slow runs. I do easy runs. I do long, easy runs to get better. And it's the same with if you're a pianist or a singer or whatever. You also have to do the work in a way that is not too stressful. And then at some point, of course, you have to give all. You have an exciting concert, and of course, then you put everything into it. But then you also need your rest phases. So don't exploit yourself, regardless of what profession you are. Also, composers can exploit themselves. Conductors can exploit themselves. So be gentle to yourself. And if you are gentle to yourself, you can also be gentle to your colleagues and friends, because they are your friends, they are your colleagues. And the more as musicians we work together, we support each other, the better life, the better musical life we build. The musical life is exactly as we build it. If we are all envious, if we are intriguing against each other, you know, if we always wish the others the worst, then also the musical life will be really horrible, and it will be like a jungle and everybody wants to kill each other. And that is not nice. So be gentle to yourself, be gentle to others, and I'm sure that then you will have a successful, and I don't mean successful in a commercial way, but a successful musical life where you are happy with what you are doing, with your capabilities, never stop learning, never stop to be curious, and that's it. Bye-bye.